Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Today we're going to take a look at the Fear Itself expansion for Marvel Legendary. Specifically, it's an expansion for the Legendary Villains base set, but that doesn't really matter. You can mix and match all the different stuff from the different Legendary sets in any event. All you got to do is the annoying terminology swap. Commanders are masterminds, allies are heroes, adversaries are villains, and so on. I really dislike the way that they did that. But Fear Itself is it's based on a storyline from Marvel Comics, which I had never read because I haven't read comics in a very long time. I just keep up with Legendary, actually. It's how I keep up with the new comic characters and storylines that are coming out. But Fear Itself was pretty interesting when I read up on it. It's all about this evil Asgardian deity known as the Serpent, who is the god of fear, who Odin banished a long time ago. Come to find out that the Red Skull was worshipping the Serpent, and his daughter, Red Skull's daughter, Sin, discovered this evil hammer like Thor's hammer, which made her into a servant of the Serpent. Then the Serpent sent down a bunch of other evil hammers like Thor's that were acquired by mostly villains and the Hulk in the Marvel Universe, but also like the Juggernaut, Absorbing Man, some like subterranean guy, or not subterranean, but underwater nemesis I've never even heard of before. They acquired these hammers and became all servants of the Serpent, and then they fought against the heroes of the Marvel Universe as fear starts to spread across the planet. And then all the heroes of the Marvel Universe got enchanted with Asgardian power, Uru enchanted, which just sounds fun to say, Uru. That's not the service that picks you up in their car. That's Uber, not Uber. Uru. But anyways, so these heroes were fighting off against the villains, and so I don't even know how the story ended. I'm sure the heroes won. But in the Fear Itself expansion, because it's for villains, you take control of those evil serpent-enchanted allies, or villains who are fighting against the mighty, who are there. By the way, the villains are called the Worthy of the Serpent. The mighty are the mighty of Asgard, the heroes from Earth enchanted by the Asgardians, and led by their commander, Uru enchanted Iron Man. Let's go ahead and take a look at the cards that come in the set, and also I'm going to show you a cool app that I found that's a randomizer for Legendary. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Alright, the first thing I want to show you is actually not Fear Itself, the expansion for Legendary. I actually want to show you, as an aside, this cool app I have found for Android that might help people out. It's actually a randomizer app. It's very bare bones, but essentially you can set all of your different settings for all the different expansions and sets you have for Legendary. Let's see, if you go to the settings here, you can pick each of the expansions that you want to include. It's up to date, up to and including Guardians of the Galaxy. So they don't have Fear Itself yet, but the expansion just came out last week, so I wouldn't hold that against the creator too much. There's a couple different things you can do here. Aside from checking off the settings you want to include and don't want to include, you can either do a normal random selection method, which is just everything goes into a pot and gets scrambled together. There's no rhyme or reason. Or you can do a smart selection, which means that the app tries to pair up the mastermind and villain groups and heroes together in a way that makes sense. They go together well, at least from a mechanical standpoint, I suppose. And you can actually change the weight preferences for the teams and classes that are involved. I actually don't know exactly what all that does, because I just do the normal randomization. I just want crazy combinations and pairings up. But essentially, I think what these do are just make it so, how weighted are they in favor of the heroes and villains and masterminds matching up properly. You can increase or decrease that setting. So whenever you have your preferences saved, you just go here and generate your decks, and it will tell you what you have here. So here we have Kingpin capturing Baby Hope. The villains are the Defenders, because remember, these are the Marvel villains, and the original Legendary sets are mixed together. So Defenders, the Infinity Gems, and the Streets of New York. Wow, the Kingpin is really, really getting involved with some crazy stuff. And then the heroes and allies are Angel, Blade, Daredevil, Iron Fist, and The Thing, which makes a little more sense than at least the villain matchup is. So anyways, that's the app. I thought it was cool. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. Now, on to Fear Itself. All right, we'll start off with the plots, and this is the eponymous plot of the game, which is Fear itself. How this is going to work is that for special setup, instead of 5 spots in the lair, which remember, we're using villain terminology here, you're going to have 8 spots to fill with allies that you can purchase from, which sounds great. But those 8 spots are also a countdown. Every time a twist is drawn from the deck, you have to essentially blow up one of those spots. You KO one of the allies that's in the lair. That spot becomes unavailable, so you keep going down 8, 7, 6, 5. If it ever gets down to 0, meaning that many twists have been drawn from the deck, then the game is over for the villains. Here we have the last stand at Avengers Tower. How this works is that when twists come out of the deck, they go above the rooftops as like defense turrets for Avengers Tower. And whenever a hero goes into that spot, they get to start blowing up allies that are in the lair. And if too many allies go into the KO pile, then the villains are going to lose the game. And then this is the most interesting one. This is the Traitor. How this works, you can only obviously do this with 2 or more players. You can't do this solo. When you start the game, you're going to make a special deck made up of binding cards and a twist card, a single twist card. During the game, whenever twists come out, every player is going to draw a card from that special deck, meaning that eventually someone is going to get that single twist card. That player, and remember these are kept secret, is the Traitor. And at any point during the rest of the game, once they've gotten their Traitor card, they can reveal themselves as the Traitor, and every other player has to take every binding card that they've been drawing from that special deck and gain them into their discard pile. Also, from that point forward, the player who is a Traitor can spend 4 combat as many times as they want per turn to draw extra cards from the adversary deck. The reason they'd want to do that is because if all the twists are drawn from the deck, if at least 8 of the twists are drawn from the deck, which is how many there will be in there, then not only do all the rest of the villains lose, but this Traitor character is the sole winner, together with, of course, the metaphorical good guys. So really, really interesting plot there. Kind of pairs up well with the legendary Alien Encounters deck building game, which has its own Traitor element. Now let's get on to the Mastermind. Did I say Mastermind? Because I meant Commander. I really dislike this terminology. Anyways, the only Commander in this set is Uru Enchanted Iron Man. He's Iron Man imbued with the powers of Asgard. He always leads the Mighty, which are actually these people in the background here. I'll get to them in a minute and show you their cards. Let's talk about his command strikes. Now, on the surface of it, he only has 7 combat. When his command strike is drawn, first thing is you demolish all the players. Demolishing is just you flip over if you don't remember from the villain set, you flip over the top card of the deck, the ally deck, whatever the cost of that card is, every other player has to discard a card of the equal cost from their hand, and then you put that card from the ally deck underneath the deck. But in addition to that, every command strike goes next to Iron Man and counts as an Uru Enchanted weapon. Uru Enchanted weapons in this game, like he and the rest of the Mighty have, mean that when you go to fight Iron Man or one of the Mighty, you, just like normal, you get as much combat as you think you need, which in this case you only need 7 to make an attempt. Then you flip over a card off the top of the adversary deck for every Uru Enchanted weapon the character has. So if there's 3 command strikes next to Uru Enchanted Iron Man, then you have to flip over 3 cards. You add the victory point total from every one of those cards to Iron Man's fight power, which means that if you flip over 3 cards, one of them is a plot twist, the other 2 are, let's say, shield agents, then or shield assault squads, that means it's 2 victory points. 2 victory points will get added to his total, making his combat strength 9. But what this means, and there could be, remember, victory point totals go from like 4 to 6. One of the Mighty in this set has a victory point total of 6. We'll get to that in a second. But what this means is that you are not guaranteed to win anymore if you choose to fight one of the adversaries or the commander in this deck. You may lose, in which case just nothing happens. You have wasted all of your combat, so you have to use all of your abilities first that you want to do to buff yourself before you decide to lock it in and fight someone who's Uru Enchanted. Now, let's get to the Mighty. Alright, so here's the Mighty adversary group, which Uru Enchanted Iron Man always leads. These are some of Earth's heroes who have been enchanted by Asgardian power to fight the Serpent and their forces. So here we have Black Widow. Now, she has combat strength of 3, but she has 2 Uru enchanted weapons, which means you have to fight. You have to flip 2 cards off the top of the deck before you can successfully fight her. Here you see it says fight or fail, which is a new thing for people who are Uru enchanted, which in this case just says if the Uru enchanted weapons that are revealed are bystanders, you get to kidnap them, so you get to claim them, which is actually a good thing for fight or fail. Here you have Iron Fist, who has 3 combat and only 1 Uru enchanted weapon. Really? Iron Fist isn't as strong as Black Widow? That's ridiculous. Anyways, for fight or fail, if one of those Uru enchanted weapons was an adversary, you can get to KO one of your allies, which might be good or bad. I'm not going to go over every single one of their special abilities, but here's Hawkeye. He has an Uru enchanted weapon. They all do. The Red She-Hulk, which I didn't even know was a thing, by the way. Here's Ms. Marvel. And Doctor Strange. Now, his ability is interesting because you reveal the top 3 cards of the adversary deck as an ambush ability when he comes out. And the adversary you reveal with the highest victory point total goes on top of the deck, and you put the rest on the bottom, in addition to his Uru enchanted weapon. He's 5. But here's the big daddy, Wolverine, who has 2 Uru enchanted weapons in addition to 5 combat. And if you fight or fail, you draw 2 cards. But on an over one, each player reveals one of these, I don't remember the name of it, allies, or gains a bindings. Then you put Wolverine on top of the adversary deck, which means he just keeps coming back. Now, let's get to the allies. All right, here's Scotty, otherwise known as Sin, the daughter of the Red Skull. One of her cards lets you gain a Madam Hydra if you've played one of these other types of heroes already. You have Hammer of the Serpent, which is a thrown artifact. This is the other major new mechanic in this game. Artifacts, I believe, were introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy, and they are cards that just stay in play, like constructs in Ascension. You buy them the same way, you put them out the same way, but then they stay in play from round to round. You still get their symbols the first time that you play them onto the field. However, thrown artifacts are slightly different. You get to use their special ability, which in this case is you gain 2 combat for every card you discarded this turn. But when you use it for its ability, you will flip the card over and put it on the bottom of your deck. You have thrown it. It's gone. It goes underneath your deck. But because it's a thrown weapon, which in this case are the hammers of the evil versions of Thor's hammer, they come back to you pretty quickly, which is why it goes on the bottom of your deck instead of in your discard pile. There's a lot of combos in this game that revolve around that. Here you have Ancient Oath of Hydra. You can discard one of your Hydra allies, and if you do, you get to draw 2 cards. And her ultimate card here, another thrown artifact. When you throw this, you get +1 combat for each other Hydra ally you played this turn. Now let's get on to the Absorbing Man, but not really. Here we have the Absorbing Man, otherwise known as Greythoth or something to that effect. Mace of Chains is a thrown artifact. When you throw this, you get +2 recruitment points. Remember, thrown artifacts go on the bottom of the deck. Absorb Metal, normally 1 combat, but if you control an artifact, you get +2 combat. Then you have Break the Will to Resist. Now for this, it's 3 combat, but if you played one of these, I think it's Accuracy Heroes, each player discards the bottom, that's not Accuracy, I can't remember, Sonic. Each player discards the bottom card of their deck. For each non-grade card discarded this way, you get +1 combat. And then his ultimate card, Body of Uru, 4 combat, but you get additional combat equal to the total number of artifacts controlled by players and the artifacts that are in the lair available for purchase. Now let's get to Juggernaut, but not actually. Alright, Juggernaut, otherwise known as Kurth. This is a thrown artifact that gives you 2 combat. Now the thing I'll mention about the Juggernauts cards here is that he has a lot of things about looking at cards on the top or bottom of the deck, so you can combo that very well with these thrown artifacts. Reach for power, excuse me, same thing. 2 recruitment, but you can look at the top or bottom card of your deck, and if the cost of that card is 4, you get additional +2 recruit. Here you have Contest of Strength, 3 combat, but if you have played one of the Enemies of Asgard allies already, you can discard the top card of any player's deck, then reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card is higher or equal, you get +2 combat on top of that. And his ultimate card, Break Every Bone, gives you 0 combat, but reveal a card from your hand, the top card of your deck, and the bottom card of your deck, you get plus combat equal to their total cost, which could be amazing. Now let's look at Atuma, otherwise known as, I don't even know, is Atuma a good character? Yeah, sorry, I'm actually not familiar with Atuma, but his Fear itself character is called Nurkod, and he's got a few interesting cards here that have to do with moving people in the city. So Pool of the Tides lets you move an adversary to an adjacent city space and possibly swap them, if that's the case. Then you have Feed My Undersea Legions, which is that you get 2 combat whenever you defeat an adversary on the bridge this turn. You get to KO one of your cards or a card from your discard pile, and then get a new recruit card, which are, remember the new recruits? Those are really awesome cards. Cudgel of the Deep is a thrown artifact. When you throw this, you get +3 combat, usable only against adversaries on the bridge or against the commander. So like I said, these are all about placement in the city. And then his ultimate card, Break Their Loyalties. 5 combat, but if you've played an enemy of Asgard, each other player reveals their hand. You get to choose a new recruit or Madam Hydra from each other player's hands and put them into your own, which is incredibly nasty. Then we'll look at Skirn, who was Titania. Alright, Skirn's first card here is Titanic Bludgeon. It's a thrown artifact that gets you +1 combat for each card that you have drawn this turn. So that's kind of her focus with her deck, which means that that makes this card very, very good because the Towering Leader card lets you get new recruits, 2 or 3 depending on if you played a card with that symbol. And remember, new recruits let you draw cards, which are very, very good with her other cards. Then you have Underhanded Dealings. You get 2 combat, but you get to look at the bottom card of your deck and discard it or put it back. If you've played another card with this symbol, you get to draw a card from the bottom of your deck, which could be really, really great. Remember, drawing cards is good for her. And then finally, 4 combat from Break Your Hopes, her ultimate card, but each player reveals one of these, I think, Sonic allies, or discards a card. For each card discarded this way, you draw a card, which is really, really great. And Null, who is also the Hulk, and by the way, both of those are equally silly names. Just like with the original Hulk, green fist symbols are what you're really going for here. You have Demolition Derby, which is choose a player and demolish them. If that player discards a card this way, you get to draw a card if you played a green fist symbol, and it gives you 2 recruit as well. You have Otherworldly Maul, which is a thrown artifact that gives you +2 combat for every green fist ally you have played, which is really powerful, potentially. You have Null Smash, which is the most ridiculous card in the entire set. You play Null Smash and you say Null Smash, and then each player slaps a palm on the table. The last player to do that gains a binding, and it gives you 4 combat. Just ridiculous. And Break the World, Null's ultimate card. 6 combat, you get to KO 2 cards from your hand and or discard pile. For each bindings you KO this way, you demolish each other player. That's it. Let's get to my final thoughts. Every expansion for Marvel Legendary is good to some degree. None of them have been abjectly bad. Yeah, I complained a little bit in my review of the Legendary Villains base set because I just thought, the terminology thing is stupid. There's not enough innovation in this set, but it was still good. And even the small expansions add some really interesting and unique things. In fact, I would say that the small expansions seem to be the designers and developers' way of like experimenting and trying some weird new mechanics, and Fear itself does that really, really well. There's so many interesting things here. First thing I want to mention is that in my review for Legendary Villains and how I talked about how I was kind of upset there was no innovative stuff there, one thing I believe I remember myself mentioning was that there was no Traitor Element, which seemed perfect for a villain's game. Well, now that is there in the Fear itself set. There is a plot that lets you do that, and it's handled really, really interestingly in the sense that just because you kind of want to reveal yourself as a traitor at some point, and kind of almost like Shadows over Camelot, where you can reveal yourself as a traitor or just even if you are revealed as a traitor against your will, at least you can still do some very useful things to screw over the heroes. And that's how it works here. Being able to forcefully spend your combat to pull more cards out of the deck is really great. It was a really interesting plot. The other plots are okay. The Fear itself one is interesting because of getting more spots to buy allies from the lair, but it's not all that great. And actually the one for the defense of the Avengers Tower with the turrets, I only played that particular one solo, and it never even came up. It didn't even matter, so it's probably the weakest of the 3 plots, but the other ones are okay, and the Traitor one is amazing. As far as the different allies, well, let's talk about the new mechanics in the game. The allies have the new Throne artifact, which is fantastic. The artifacts were introduced in Legendary Guardians of the Galaxy expansion, and it was okay. A lot of them just gave you more crystals, which I thought was a pretty fiddly aspect of the game. I mean, it was good, and I liked the idea of having the artifacts in play. I just don't think it was implemented as great as I would have wanted it to be in that. But here, I love the idea of the Throne artifacts. The idea of shoving a card underneath the deck to use its ability seems kind of fiddly and dumb when I first read it, but it's great. There's so many combos you can do with that, and it's thematic. I mean, yeah, you're throwing these hammers in the Marvel Universe, they come back to you. And I can easily see this being used in the future for like Captain America's shield or any other like special weapon that flies back. It's just a great idea, and there's so many things you can do with it. And in this particular deck, especially with decks like Skirn and Kurth, I know I'm not saying these names correctly, which are Titania and the Juggernaut, especially in those decks, which are probably my two favorite ally, not decks, but ally that you add into the deck, the main ally deck. Those are probably my favorites because they utilize that mechanic so well. Putting the cards, the artifact underneath your deck, then being able to draw it, manipulate it, look at it in order to power up your other cards is fantastic. That works really well. Of the allies, my least favorite is probably the underwater one. I think his original name was Atuma. I can't remember. It's like Nurkod or something is his worthy name. He's okay. I do like any of the allies or heroes that can manipulate the city and move the adversaries or villains around, even though it's not always that useful. I think it's pretty cool thematically. I just wasn't that interested in using him in this game. Same thing with the Absorbing Man, he's okay. Null / the Hulk is really, really powerful and can be fun, but he's not that drastically different from his original Hulk version. Get as many green fists as possible. He also has the worst card in this set, which is the Null Smash, slap your hand on the table thing, and then someone gets a binding. I hate that. I hate when they do silly meta things like that. I wish it wasn't there. But otherwise, all the allies are pretty cool, and it's a welcome addition to have more variety into the set. I like the whole Uru Enchanted mechanic. That is super cool. It adds a bit of randomness to combat that wasn't there before, which I can imagine some people wouldn't like. And again, it is another little tiny layer of fiddliness, having to flip the cards off the deck, but it just works well. It's so interesting. It really makes you ponder, should I fight this person? How much combat am I really going to be able to accrue? I do wish that there was actual legitimate fail consequences. Now it's just like fight or fail, this happens, and it's usually good for you, just like fighting things normally is. And not in all cases, but in most cases. But I wish there was a legitimate, like, okay, you failed, something really bad is going to happen to you, but you gambled and it just didn't pay off for you. I like that push your luck element to it. And overall, this is a really solid set. I like all the new mechanics that were introduced. The artwork is as phenomenal as ever. Someone walked by our table and said, man, that just looks beautiful, and it is. The artwork in Legendary is stellar, especially for the new adversaries, the Mighty. The storyline is cool. I might actually want to go back and read the comic book now, and I think I even like this small set better than the other small sets, including Guardians of the Galaxy. Not by a wide margin, but it is really cool. That is the Fear Itself expansion for Legendary and Legendary Villains.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.